AfricaLink News.
Hello and welcome to AfricaLink here on DW. Today is a special day as we are covering the Ghana's general election. My name is Josey Mahachi, your host. Anyone who knows Ghana knows it's a democracy where a change in elected leadership is usually relatively peaceful. Now, today's general election holds significant weight for the future. It's 4 years since the last election that saw President Nana Akufo-Addo win a second term with 51.3% of the vote, beating the then incumbent John Mahama. This time around, Mahama is back in the presidential race, along with 3 other key candidates, some of them newcomers in high-stakes politics. Ghanaians have been hearing all of them promise bold reforms and progress. How far true are these promises, and who is going to take the leadership when it comes to becoming Ghana's #1? Now, before we delve deeper into what is happening in Ghana, my colleague Mimi Mefo here from DW will also be joining me just to talk about the other elections that happened in Africa. There were like over 10 significant elections that happened in Africa. And today we just want to talk about them. So Mimi, you can grab your chair and come on board. Let's talk about—
Thank you, Josey. Hello, everyone. It's been so hectic preparing for today, Josey. How are you feeling?
Well, I'm just happy we are now live, and
election day is finally here, and Ghanaians are voting. We are here to bring all the analysis, all the voices on the ground. Our correspondents are already on standby. Our very own Isaac Mugabe is also waiting. Just in a few minutes from now, he'll be joining us on here to also tell us what the stakes are as far as the election is concerned, Josey.
So do you want to grab a chair, because our might be a bit long. Thank you so much, Mimi Mefo, for joining us. Now, I just mentioned that we've had like over 10 significant elections in 2024. That's just in Africa. We're not even talking about including countries like the United States, where there was a big surprise. Who even thought that President Donald Trump would come back as president of the United States? Before we talk about the other countries, Mimi, we just want to talk about Ghana. How significant, in your opinion, is today's election when it comes to Ghana's democracy?
So you know that Ghana has been a trailblazer when we are talking about democracy in Africa, with a history of peaceful transition and vibrant political engagement. We've seen Ghana surviving, being used as an example when it comes to, emulating democracy on the continent. So today's election is an opportunity for the country to actually reinforce this legacy that has always existed in Ghana, and show the world that democracy continues to strive in Ghana. And a credible and peaceful election would reaffirm Ghana's position, that top position that Ghana has always had, like the #1 when it comes to democracy. You remember when even Nana Akufo-Addo was being voted, everyone was looking at, what is going to happen? How is it going to be like? Would the election results be accepted? Those are some of the questions that people are asking now, that we have now the vice president, who is also taking part, is one of the major candidates in the election, and John Mahama now coming in and trying to be a president for the second time. What is going to be the outcome? We're waiting to see if Ghana would maintain that top spot of one of the most democratic countries in Africa.
Yeah, but Ghana is also known for always switching ruling parties. It's either, like today they love this one, then they feel like,
because I asked you in the morning, you said, it will certainly be the other party,
because of course, the other one has to. I mean, I've been growing up, that's what we've always been watching. And Ghana has been like a country dear to my heart. Our first first lady of Zimbabwe was from Ghana, Sale Mugabe.
Wow.
So I've always been following Ghana's stories. But what are some of the recent examples that Ghana should be looking at as they go to the polls today?
Now, Ghana can certainly draw inspiration from Senegal. Senegal just elected one of the youngest presidents that we have in Africa, Diomaye Faye, who is just 44 years old. And Liberia, where the incumbent, we saw George Weah actually conceded even before the election results were officially made public. And we also saw Botswana as well.
I know. So Botswana was a huge surprise.
A lot of democratic examples of like clear-cut democracy is ongoing in Africa, and it's been happening. So this is like, it's really actually raised the bar higher for Ghana.
Who thought that even South Africa, ANC, would not completely rule South Africa?
And Namibia just also elected the first female president.
Oh, I'm happy about that. I mean,
so she's adding to the list of the women that we have ruling countries across the continent. So Ghana can actually copy these countries by emphasizing transparency during the election that is taking place in the entire electoral process. And we need to also see the candidate accepting the results. If it's from the Mama camp, we have to see the vice president saying that, oh, I'm conceding and I'm congratulating Mama. If it's from the other side, John Mama also has to come out and say, oh, we accept the election results and we've accepted what the people want. So the role of an independent electoral commission also ensuring that the security throughout the electoral process, we've seen, it's not like it's been all merry on the continent. We've seen like post-election violence in some countries.
Mozambique
we need to
is a good
see
example.
that absent in Ghana after the election to be able to have Ghana consolidate that position of, a democratic country on the continent.
Absolutely. And how are Ghanaians likely to be influenced by the wave of peaceful transitions that we've seen across Africa recently?
Oh, they always want to be first in the jollof rice. They always want to be first. Even when it comes to democracy, they want to maintain that credential. Is very important for Ghana.
We know that with our colleagues. They always want to be
here. Of course. And with the recent peaceful transition in Africa, it's really, like I said earlier, raised the bar a notch higher. And they emphasize, it's also emphasizing that Ghana wants to maintain this top position. It would likely also inspire voters to participate actively and also urge candidates to embrace civility. Because if you want to stay a democratic nation, you also want to expect your leaders, particularly those who are taking part in the election, to stay democratic.
Absolutely.
So they will try to enforce that.
And how can Ghana ensure that today's election reflects the growing trend of credible elections in Africa?
Transparency at every stage. Like from northern Ghana, where we'll be having Maxwell Souk in just a few minutes from now.
Absolutely.
People want to see that there's transparency from the center, Ghana, Accra, Ghana, where we have Isaac Kalechi. People want to see transparency from voting to the results declaration. Now, civil society and international observers should also play a role, because election observers are already on the ground, seeing how they also monitoring and seeing how the voting is ongoing. And additionally, clear-cut communication by the Electoral Commission and rapid resolution of disputes in case there's any.
Absolutely.
If Myanmar comes and says that, oh, I'm not seeing the outcome the way I wanted it to, there should be that kind of overt communication by the Electoral Commission, so that people can trust not just the system, but those that are going to govern the country.
Now, talking about observing, you talked about the election observers. What will then other African countries be watching for as Ghana conducts its elections?
Very important question, Josey, given that there are many elections coming up next year. This year also was a very, very hectic one when it comes to election in Africa. I saw you also doing some research. We've had a lot of elections on the continent. Now, I think if Niger or Ghana were to have a country like Niger was to have an election with 12 presidential candidates in 2025, I'm just thinking what would the situation be like, because we are not yet sure of what the situation in Niger is going to be. But I'm thinking about also in Cameroon, where I come from. It's also going to be an electoral here in Cameroon.
How do you feel about that? What are you expecting? Let's talk about Cameroon a little bit.
Today is not about Cameroon, but if you want me to talk about
it's one of the
there's
countries.
a lot of uncertainty, because we've had a leader who's been there for more than 40 years. Now he's 91. By the time the next election holds, he'll be 92. And many people are wondering whether he's actually going to stand or someone within his party will be standing. We are unsure whether there will be change because many Cameroonians now want some sort of change. We want a woman, we want a young leader who can bring in some fresh impetus to the political situation in Cameroon. We are not sure what will happen. Now, also Ivory Coast next year is going to be, we saw the president, Laurent Gbagbo, the former president's wife, saying that she's wants to be a candidate. And I believe that these countries will be watching Ghana's ability to manage the electoral process fairly and peacefully so that they can copy. Remember, Ghana is the model of African democracy.
Not yet. Let's see what happens after today. I mean, because the world is changing. A lot of things are just happening, and you don't know what next, what to expect. So let's see. Let's not quickly say it will be the same, but like you say, they always want to be on top. In case you're just joining us, we are live here from Bonn, rather, at the DW headquarters, but we are covering the Ghana election. Today is D-Day. Ghanaians are going to vote for their next president. Who's going to be? That's the question we want you to tell us in the comment section. My name is Josey Mahachi, and still talking to me here is my colleague, Mimi Mefo. And Mimi, as we just continue this discussion, we can never ignore or forget the youth, youth of Ghana. What role do they play in shaping, the election in Ghana today? What role does the youth play?
The young people make up a significant portion of the electorate. Many young people, like even our correspondents who are on the ground, they are young people, they are young Ghanaians, and their concerns such as employment, education, technology, these are really core issues that they are worried about, young Ghanaians, and their active participation will determine the outcome of the election as well. But it would also confirm a growth or a grown pattern that Africans youth are taking ownership of their political future. We saw that in with the case of Bobi Wine, where young people in Uganda stood up and said that, okay, we want, his party is constituted of very, very, very young people. We also saw that in Senegal, talking about it. And, leaders must take note that ensure policies that reflect the younger demographics. Young people want to be part of the decision-making process.
They want seats at the high table as well.
At the high table, they want employment. They don't just want promises. It's not just being elected as a leader. They want also to be part of governance, and that's what young people in Ghana too would want to see. Like, they would want to get employed. They would want to see like a lot of change even in the educational system. Those are some of the things. I don't know. I guess Isaac Alechi and Maxwell Sook, as well as Ellen, will be joining us. Will probably tell us, like, from their own personal perspectives, what they are looking forward to, seeing in Ghana after the election.
Absolutely. Now, the role of media when it comes to these things, comes to election, comes to democracy, is so huge. We have a huge role to play, Mimi. We are journalists. And I'm just wondering, how can Ghana's media ensure accurate reporting and avoid inflaming tensions during today's election?
This is very important. And I think that DW really took this very seriously, which is why you also spoke to a fact checker would be maybe telling, I shouldn't, give it away, but that is something that will be coming up very shortly to talk about the role of the media, which is very, very crucial and cannot be overemphasized. The media, whether public, private, or independent media, must prioritize accuracy over speed, verify information before broadcasting, and avoid sensationalism, which is something that many people have been doing recently. Now, also providing a balanced coverage and offering platforms to civil society actors, to young people that we've already talked about, to both independent or the candidates, so that they should feel like their voices are being represented throughout the electoral process.
Now, let's talk about President Nana Akufo-Addo's legacy. How
he's done so much. He's done a lot. He's done. And recently I admired how he came before leaders at the UN and was talking about, the past, African history and slavery, that it shouldn't just be forgotten, and that a lot of things have to be done for reparations and so on.
Yeah.
And he's always really stressed on that. But is that the priority for the Ghanaian people? That's the question, because
that
I
is
don't
the
come
first
from
question.
Ghana.
Yeah,
He's done a lot in terms of education, but is it enough? Now, President Nana Akufo-Addo's legacy is multifaceted, I should say. Domestically, he's been celebrated for free senior high school policy that he instituted. We don't know how significant how that has affected the people of Ghana, and he's been able to expand access to education, and also the one district, one factory initiative that was aimed at industrialization. However, his tenure also faced economic challenges. We saw the issue with the mining sector and a lot of protests as well in Ghana, including a return to IMF support. We don't know if that's something that the Ghanaian people wanted. You saw the back and forth, also the place of Ghana in terms of LGBT rights. The parliament has been also back and forth with the presidency in terms of, making this legal in the country, where the LGBTQ persons really should have a place in Ghana.
Absolutely.
Which has, it's been a lot of questions on how far human rights are being respected in Ghana. So there's also been a lot of domestic achievements on the part of Nana Akufo-Addo, like
the visa. Let's talk about access. I love traveling.
You mean like visa-free?
I mean, I think they've made it even easier. They've made it easier.
Yeah, they did. But that's for people who are coming from outside. But domestically,
I understand.
How are these policies benefiting the people of Ghana? In terms of, creating access to job, creating opportunities for the people of Ghana. Just like people will not like it when Trump says America first. African leaders should be able to put their citizens first.
That's true.
Before other citizens who are coming from outside. Of course, we want to embrace United Africa, integration and so on. But the citizens of Ghana should be the priority of those who are governing. Yeah,
I mean, of course, that's a no-brainer. Your citizens first. Even they say charity begins at home, right? So definitely, I'm so glad that you've mentioned some stuff that President Nana Akufo-Addo has achieved as president of Ghana. But as we wrap up this discussion, Mimi, what impact have recent coups in West Africa had on the ECOWAS bloc, and how might Ghana's elections set an example?
It has really tested ECOWAS, the economic community of West African state bloc. It's tested democracy within the bloc. It's tested the stability. Sometimes they didn't know whether to intervene in the coup countries or to be laid back. So countries like Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso have seen disruptions in democratic governance, challenging the region's progress. So Ghana is often regarded as a beacon of democracy and has the opportunity to reinforce that reputation by ensuring peaceful and transparent elections, so that we don't see what has happened in Niger happening in Ghana. We don't see what has happened in Mali happening in Ghana. Now, a successful election in Ghana today is likely going to send a strong message about the region's commitment to democracy and provide ECOWAS with a much needed success story to counter the narrative of, instability, dictatorship in some parts of Africa that has been spreading through the bloc, like Cameroon that we talked about. But Cameroon, unfortunately, is not a member of ECOWAS. But we've seen a lot of, things happening within ECOWAS that with this election, people now have to start thinking like, okay, are we moving ahead when it comes to democracy, or are we going behind? Josey?
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much,
Thank you as well, Josey, for having me. Thank you.
I mean, the show is still ongoing, so please stay tuned, because we are still here covering the Ghana elections today.
DW AfricaLink.
Now let's start by taking a closer look at the candidates. We have about 11 candidates rather, that are all vying for presidency in Ghana today. But we just want to take a closer look at the top four candidates in Ghana. Who are they? What are they made of? What are they promising? Our correspondent on ground, Adoa Ellen Tenkorama, brings us this report.
It is a choice between the Ghana we have today and the Ghana we want together. A Ghana of opportunity, prosperity, and justice for all.
Alan John Trematin is another candidate. The 69-year-old former Minister for Trade and Industry has left the NPP to form his own party, the Movement for Change. His platform centers around reducing the country's exchange rate volatility and implementing his great transformational plan. Alan Trematin's candidacy creates a shift from the established parties and positions him as an outsider. But does he have the goodwill to defeat the status quo?
And under Alan Trematin presidency, there's no child in Ghana who will finish school and not have a job.
Nana Kwame Bediako, known as the Gen Z president, is a 44-year-old youngest contender in the race. His focus is on economic freedom and regional industrialization, promising to transform all of Ghana's 16 regions into industrial hubs. He resonates with young voters seeking to energize them with bold, transformative ideas for the country's future.
This economic freedom that the new forces bring into Ghana.
Ghana's 2024 presidential election is shaping up to be one of the most competitive in the country's political history. The stakes are high as various polls put 4 major candidates ahead of 12 presidential hopefuls. Now here is what we know about these 4 candidates in no particular order.
Let's start with Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia, the current vice president and the ruling New Patriotic Party's candidate. He is the digital transformation advocate with a focus on technology and economic reforms. The 61-year-old aims to push for a flat tax system and sees himself as a candidate with practical, tech-driven solutions to boost Ghana's economy, particularly in global trade, under his bold solutions agenda.
When you come to the macro economy, what is clear is that notwithstanding the challenges we've had, we have performed better than the government of John Dramani Mahama across.
Another interesting one is John Dramani Mahama, 66-year-old former president who is seeking a return to power after his single term between 2012 and 2016. His Resetting Ghana agenda, among other promises, seeks to overhaul the public health system and tackle chronic diseases through initiatives like the Mahama Cares program.
It is a defining moment for our nation. It is a choice between the Ghana we have today and the Ghana we want together. A Ghana of opportunity, prosperity, and justice for all.
Alan John Trematin is another candidate. The 69-year-old former Minister for Trade and Industry has left the NPP to form his own party, the Movement for Change. His platform centers around reducing the country's exchange rate volatility and implementing his great transformational plan. Alan Trematin's candidacy creates a shift from the established parties and positions him as an outsider. But does he have the goodwill to defeat the status quo?
And under Alan Trematin presidency, there's no child in Ghana who will finish school and not have a job.
Nana Kwame Bediako, known as the Gen Z president, is a 44-year-old youngest contender in the race. His focus is on economic freedom and regional industrialization, promising to transform all of Ghana's 16 regions into industrial hubs. He resonates with young voters seeking to energize them with bold, transformative ideas for the country's future.
This economic freedom that the new forces bring into Ghana is not only by us, but it's also from the people and to be achieved by the nation.
With Bawumia and Mahama currently leading the polls, the election promises to be a tight race. However, the decision rests with Ghana's over 18 million voters who will decide whether they lean towards the digital future promised by Bawumia, the return of Mahama, or the fresh perspectives of Alan Chumating and Bediako. Now, whatever voters' choice will be, this election remains a defining moment in Ghana's democratic journey. Let's see what Ghanaians decide today.
Absolutely. Let's see what Ghanaians decide today. Thank you so much, Adoa Ellen Tenkorama, for that very insightful presentation. Voting has already been taking place across the country. We're talking of Ghana. We are covering the Ghana elections today here on DW Africa. Our correspondents in Ghana are standing by to give you a sense of what have been happening so far. But before that, citizens first. As you heard in our discussion with Mimi Mefo earlier, we now want to hear from some voters on what they would be looking out for in this election and what would inform their choices. Here are some Ghanaians speaking to our correspondent in northern Ghana, Maxwell Suk.
It is important I cast my vote or I take part in elections. So something that would inform me to vote is that looking at the policies of both political parties, it is something that will entice me to vote this year or take part in elections.
It would definitely be based on the policies and competencies of the candidates who have actually shown up for the presidential and that of the parliamentary seats. So their policies would definitely influence whom I should vote for. That's basically it. I'll look at their policies and also the credibility of all the political aspirants. I think they've all read their manifestos to us, and they are all credible and they can all lead. But the only thing that will make the difference will be their policies. How feasible are they? Which of them is promising me of employment? Because as a young graduate, I need something that I'll engage myself in so that at the end of the month, I can take care of my family. Yeah. So these are some of the things I'll be looking at. The credibility and then the policies.
And looking at both their policies, it is something that they have young people at heart. So if a political party has young people at heart, and I want to see the development of young people, so I'll definitely go in to cast my vote if their policies is based on providing development and then empowering young people.
The reality at the moment is very bad. In fact, it's very devastating. Every young person will tell you. Just recently, the recruitment of the nurses, most of them are the various regional they were complaining. They said 2020, they were going to post the 2020 badge. But what we realized was that it's who you know. If you don't know anybody, it means you will not get employment. So the current state of unemployment in the country is very bad. So it's one of the things that will influence my vote.
Yes, I just hope and believe that Ghanaians would actually give us a very resounding turnout so that we all cast our vote for the people we believe have the competency to lead us for the next 4 years. So that is basically what one of my aspirations could be. And also ensuring that we vote peacefully without resorting to anything that can distract the process.
I'd like to encourage all young people to take part in the elections or to vote not based on faith, religion, or maybe family related. They should vote on the policies that the government or maybe the political party is bringing on board.
Thank you. There's something usable.
Absolutely. So you've heard some voices there. Those are Ghanaians expressing their views and what they're expecting from their candidates in Tamale, the northern part of Ghana. Well, in the Ghanaian capital, that's Accra, some voters have also been speaking to our correspondent, Ellen.
because these two parties come in power to, let's say, disappoint with the Ghanaians. That's the MPP and the NDC. So for me to vote, no, I'm not going to vote. But if with Cheddar, that one, so far as I say he's a young guy, definitely he's going to help the youth. But with the MPP and the NDC, because they have what it takes to be, I don't think they will definitely help the country again. Whoever wins, he wins here. With that one, yes. So I'm not under MPP or NDC, no. So whoever wins, I'm also there.
I'm voting for MPP because I enjoy the free access. I want my fellow siblings to enjoy the free access, yeah. And I'm cool with the economy in this area, like this era. I'm okay. So a full MPP member.
Well, I want change in our living. I want everything to be smoothly. I want a good life. So that are the issues that I'll base on and vote. I'm looking forward to witness a peaceful election. God willing, hoping any party who wins, we will support them. So fellow Ghanaians, I want you to go in your numbers and vote peacefully. That is all.
Absolutely, fellow Ghanaians, go in your numbers and vote peacefully. All we want is peace, 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 peace. Now it's that time that you've been waiting for to bring in our correspondents on ground. We are going to bring in, first is Maxwell Sook, who's in Tamale in northern Ghana. Maxwell, how are you? What's happening?
Yeah, so I am very fine, if you can hear me.
I can hear you.
Right. So I am just in one of the polling stations. Behind me are voters who have been here. The process has been very fast. I think people spend maximum 5 minutes when they get to their turn to be able to get. In many of the polling stations, it's been smooth. It's just a handful of them that we hear reports of hitches. For instance, breakages, of breakdown of equipment and the inadequacy of the machines. And there are also some confusion sometimes of the ballot box, which is supposed to contain a particular number of papers. Maybe some would be short. So they sit and they report that, and they take a decision to resolve it. So far, it's been, I think it's one of the peaceful process from the beginning up to now, because we have not heard about any security breaches. We have not heard of people being hijacked. We have not heard the ballot being snatched. It was just one incident I heard from the far north, where he says that somebody attempted in smuggling illegal papers into the box. However, he was caught, and then the papers were seized and burnt. So far, this is it.
Okay, great. So we just don't drop. We now just need to bring in more correspondents. But thank you so much for that update, Maxwell Sook. Now we also have Isaac Kelechi, the famous Isaac Kelechi is also covering the election in the capital of Accra. He joins me as well. Isaac, what's happening?
Thanks so much, Josey. Well, like Maxwell just said, voting has been taking place since 7 a.m. and I've been to some of the polling stations around, just back to a location where I could speak to you briefly. And basically what you've seen is that we have had relatively calm and peaceful process, orderly process. We've had a lot of polling stations around, so you will see across the country that in many polling stations, you don't have a lot of numbers there, because that has helped to reduce the queues that you see ideally in previous elections. And you can see people coming out to vote. But again, there are concerns that maybe turnout will be low, because ideally you want to have people in the early morning with a huge crowd trying to vote. But basically, it's still about 4 hours to end voting. Voting ends 5 p.m. local time here. So just about that, we still have people who will definitely come in to vote. But across the country, it has been relatively calm and peaceful. There have been efforts by the police to deal with some miscreants who are trying to actually put in some attitudes that obviously will create disruption. But I think that those have been dealt with. So I would say generally, like Maxwell said, it's been peaceful and orderly so far.
All right. Thank you so much, Isaac Kelechi. Now we also want to find the election. Ellen has been monitoring that and joins me live here on DW Africa. Ellen, how are you? What's happening? Ellen, I needed to unmute you. Can you hear me? Can you unmute Ellen? Ellen, can you kindly unmute? Okay, I think there is a challenge there with Ellen. Maybe we'll bring her a little later, but thank you so much to our correspondents. Are you here, Ellen? Can you kindly unmute? Can you hear me, Ellen?
Can you hear me, Josey?
I can hear you. I understand it might be network playing around, right? What's happening in Accra? How's the local media covering the election?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Yes. How is the local media covering the election? We just want to find out what's happening in Accra.
Okay, so kindly go over the question again. I might have lost you a bit.
Yeah, so we just want to find out from you what's happening. How is the local media covering the election in Accra and, well, in Ghana?
Right, so for the local media, you can categorize their coverage into three forms. So for instance, the first one, I'll talk about the coverage in the various constituencies. There are 276 constituencies in the country. So you find that they deploy people, correspondents, or their reporters to all of these constituencies. In areas where they do not have original reporters, they do well to employ the services of volunteers so that you can get a sense of everything that's happening across the country. Now, you also have institutional deployment. So, for instance, offices like the Electoral Commission, the Ghana Police Service, the election observers, we have the Coalition of Domestic Election Observers. You find deployments there as well so that the coverage will be well-rounded. There's also the bit about data, where the local media does not just wait for the data from the Electoral Commission. So if they are collating results, the media houses themselves set data centers where they are able to get data trickling in. So whatever their correspondents send to them, they have a system in place where they are able to verify the figures and they put it out there. But they do not call the results because that's the job of the Electoral Commission. So theirs is just to tap.
All right, I don't know. I think we've lost you there again in terms of hearing you, Ellen. But Isaac Kelechi, we've rounded up and heard what is happening now in Accra, what is happening in northern Ghana. Also, Ellen is telling us about what is happening in terms of even the local media covering. It's just unfortunate wherever she is, her internet might be playing up. But just to find out from you, Kelechi, we've already seen that the vice president has cast his vote, and he did it in northern part of Ghana. And I mean, he also spoke to the media. What does that make of everything that is happening, and how is the situation, and what did people do when they saw him vote in Ghana, in the northern part of Ghana?
Well, I'm sure Maxwell is actually in his locality, or let's say his region. I'm sure you give us some insight into it. But basically, what you could see is that he also, like Maxwell said, and like I've also seen at various polling stations, gone without huge numbers or crowd, gone to get his ballot and voted. And obviously, he has spoken about how orderly the process is and hopeful that it will end the same way. Of course, journalists asked him, and I'm sure we'll hear from him very soon about his chances. He believes that he was going to win. I mean, but obviously, we all know the results when the votes are counted. But indeed, yes, he has voted already. The former president also voted. I'm sure we'll have some kind of look as to exactly how it went for him as well. But both two leading candidates have cast their ballots, and so we'll see that indeed the process has taken place indeed, because they are the key people in the election, and they've also cast their ballots. And as we can see on the screen, I mean, you can see clearly that he didn't have much of a crowd there. Maybe that at the time he voted quite early, but you can see there's order there. He's going through the process just like anyone would do, any voter would do. And so usually, and you can see the ballot papers are very lengthy because we actually
Oh
have
my God, that looks so long.
yeah, for Ghana, but we had 13 candidates, but one actually died before the election, so we
Oh,
have
that's
12
sad to
candidates
hear.
now.
Mm.
Yeah, and so you can see that's how come the paper is very lengthy. That is just for the presidential, but I'm sure that the parliamentary papers will be limited because not every party will file a candidate in those constituencies. Yeah. So basically, that's it. I'm sure Masu can tell us about
Yes.
the story within the northern region where the vice president voted. That's Wale Wale, right, Maxwell?
Exactly, that's in Wale Wale, that's in the northeast region. So this is I think that it is one of the contested constituencies, and the outcome of that constituency is that favor or not, because the people there takes the game as a home match, so they want to do everything to ensure that the presidency come from their town, and so.
Yeah, I'm sure it's just a network.
Internet network again,
but
yeah.
again, that's what I was trying to say is that he comes from a region that is his home region, and obviously his party will want to win the election there because it's like playing a home match and you lose. Obviously, that would be quite disappointing. So basically, that's it. But I'm sure he spoke to the media after he actually did put the last ballot in the box, and so then we can hear from him as he ends the process. But basically, this is what happened. This is how it looks like. They usually travel from the capital to wherever they hail from, and they have to vote there. They don't have to vote in the capital because they are based there. They have to vote where their names are in the voters register.
Right. Now, we also understand that the vice president spoke to the media soon after casting his vote, and this is what he had to say.
Members of the press, I've come in and I have voted both in the presidential and the parliamentary election. The process has been smooth. The lines I can see are very orderly, and they are expecting a very peaceful election. Encouraging all Ghanaians, get up and get to the polling station, queue peacefully and vote and exercise their right to vote, and let this be a very peaceful election.
Sir, are you hopeful of winning this election?
Yes, I must say by the grace of God, I am very hopeful of winning this election. I think that we have done a lot of work to put our message to the people. I think the message has been well received, and I believe that by the grace of God, when all the ballots are counted, the MPP, myself and our parliamentary candidates will emerge victorious in this election. How do you see the election so far? So far, I am very happy with what I'm hearing in terms of reports around the country. It's calm. There's very little tension I can see around the country. People are going to queue. In fact, I gather that people were queuing from midnight last night across the country. It shows enthusiasm, and I believe that portends well for the democracy of Ghana.
Any figure of a margin of victory?
Stephen, you're going to set a trap for me. I'm not going to fall in that trap. A victory is a victory, and we just want to win. So, by the grace of God, we will win. Thank you. Well, I expect a peaceful process. I believe that we will see the democracy in Ghana and trend. And I want to thank all of you very much.
Yeah, Josey. Yeah. So basically that has been the message from the vice president. I mean, the former president, who is also one of the leading candidates, voted quite much later than him, and I'm sure that subsequently we'll have that image out there for the public or the audience. But again, he also made similar comments about the fact that, yeah, the process has been orderly. I mean, he's hopeful and believes that he will win. Of course, he had some crowd actually around him as where he went to vote. He also voted in his hometown, obviously. So you expect that the crowd and basically there's a routine that all of them do carry out, and it's normal for them to do that. But obviously, is what happens. What matters really is the Ghanaians who have to vote and decide among them who leads them. Yeah.
Right. Thank you so much, Kelechi, for that insight. Now, Ellen, just to hear from you as a young female Ghanaian, what do you think of the Vice President's speech?
Well, he was being a politician.
And they all.
Shy away from a lot of the questions that the media was asking about the numbers. But essentially, anybody that goes into a major election as this has the confidence of winning, even if the public sentiments are not necessarily for them. They think that they have put in place the necessary work that in their own books qualify a candidate to win an election. And what the candidates will say. I'm sure that if you hear from the former president who is also seeking a return, he will say the same thing and talk about the fact that he is hoping to win. So in fact, everybody hopes to win this election, but at the end of the day, only one person will actually win.
Yeah, but let's talk about the public's perception right now. Where is it like tilting? Which side? Is it the NPP, NDC? What is it looking like?
It's actually split, so we have a population that are very, if you have somebody who supports the governing New Patriotic Party, they support them fully and wholly, no matter what happens in the economy. You have others who support the opposition parties. Now, the other people of concern are the floating voters. And among the floating voters, the issue has had to do with the state of the economy, how things have gone so far, especially from COVID era up until now. There's been the issue of corruption that have come up strongly. In fact, the leading opposition party has said that they're going to launch an operation Recover All Loot, so that they can allegedly recover every stolen loot that the ruling party has allegedly stolen. So that's the issue that we have. We have high cost of living issues. We have erratic power supply issues. So the issues are mixed, but for the conservative supporters of either the ruling party or the opposition, do not look at the issues on the ground. So for instance, I spoke to some people who say that, look, yes, the economy is bad. Yes, we know that things are hard, but I support the NPP, and that is who I'm going to vote for. You also have an NDC member, if the NDC is in power, tell you the same thing. So you have people who are staunch supporters of each of the parties, and they stick to their belief no matter how the system looks like.
Thank you so much to our correspondents in Ghana. We will rejoin them before this program ends, but let's just put a spotlight on some issues. Let's just wait for the...
Things look calm, but as usual,
I just wanted to introduce...
in terms of the information...
Sorry about that technical glitch. We'll just wait for the technician to remove Isaac Kelechi from the screen so that I can introduce what we have next. So did you hear about the ballot paper tampering reports in Ghana that turned out to be fake? Yes, a big challenge in any election is disinformation and misinformation. It can seriously undermine the process and even lead to violence. In an era where fake news can spread faster than the truth, it's crucial to separate fact from fiction. To help us unpack how disinformation manifests during election and what's being done to counter it during this election in Ghana, I earlier had a chat with Rabiu Alassane from Ghana Facts Group.
Things look calm, but as usual, in terms of the information environment and the online space, there are lots of conversations, there are lots of actions, which necessarily you would say are not healthy in terms of the spreading of misinformation and disinformation. I think as the conversation continues, I'll be going into much more detail as to some of the specifics and some of the patterns we are seeing that would need to be addressed to ensure that we have a a situation-free or not necessarily tension-free elections.
All right, right. And obviously talking about what you do, what measures have been put in place to ensure credibility and transparency when it comes to the election process?
Sure. I think this is a multi-pronged. I would need to give you a multi-pronged answer because generally when it comes to the elections, we know the election management body, which is the Electoral Commission, would be the one to do the hard work of ensuring that the ballot papers arrive at the right time, people join the right queues, the electoral laws are followed at the precincts of the voting area to ensure there is no tension, there is no conflict. So far, we've heard from the Electoral Commission, and they've stated that that has been put in place. The necessary workings have been done to ensure there is a smooth process during the voting in the various polling stations. When it comes to the other, I think, added work that would have to be done by other players, the National Commission for Civic Education has been going around trying to educate the public about the voting process, about the rights of voters, and about the responsibility it comes with in terms of voting. We have other civil society players like ourselves, Ghana Fact, which is a project of Facts-Based West Africa. We are working to deal with issues relating to misinformation and disinformation during the period. What we've done is to collaborate with other IFCN verified fact-checking organizations in the country. So we've collapsed our newsrooms into one. And here I'm talking about the Ghana Facts newsroom. There's also the Dubawa and Fact Check Ghana newsroom that have all been collapsed into one to help in tackling misinformation and disinformation. Currently, I am in the situation room, the media situation room that has been opened in Tamale. We've opened media situation rooms, one in Accra and the other in Tamale. I am leading the team in Tamale in ensuring that information that's trickling through both on online and offline sources are credible, have been verified, and would not necessarily contribute to the tension that potentially we might be looking for it to in the hours when voting starts, to the hours that voting would end and counting of ballots would start. So I think different players, all hands on deck, are working to ensure that the process would continue in a very smooth manner and would not have major issues that would border on destabilizing the country.
Right, right. And how does the Electoral Commission address concerns of potential disinformation, misinformation during the electoral process?
The information I have is that the Electoral Commission actually had some officials go into the situation room in Accra to have a first-hand feel of how the fact-checking organizations working to tackle misinformation and disinformation are actually executing their work. And here, there should be a clear line of communication between the Electoral Commission and the media situation room to ensure when we chance on disinformation that border on undermining the electoral integrity that would be affecting throughout the period. We can have quick responses from the Electoral Commission to either confirm or debunk some of the claims that will be coming through. Beyond that, we are, as a media situation room and as a coalition, working with more than 100 mainstream media organizations spread across the 16 regions of the country, broadcasting in more than 40 local languages. We are working with all these media players to ensure that whatever fact checks we produce end up on mainstream media to reach majority of the public in their local languages, so they can identify more with the information that will be coming through. Beyond that, we are trying to ensure that those who are not connected to the internet can also be reached offline via bulk SMS. So with the bulk SMS intervention we have, we'll try and reach a significant vulnerable section of the population not necessarily connected to the internet with verified information that will be coming from the media. station will.
Right. And Rabiu, just to ask what maybe voters should do if they are to encounter any irregularities, such as, issues with the voters register or any other irregularities or problems at the voting centers, what should they do?
I think the Electoral Commission has made this quite clear for voters. When you go to the polling station and you have a problem in terms of identifying your name on the roll, your first port of call is to reach out to the polling station manager, and he will take it on and try and address it. There are officials from the two or all the political parties who will be on the ballot, the presidential ballot. They will all have agents there to help if there is the need to, or to bring the attention of the polling station manager when there are any teething issues that he will address. So your first port of call is the polling station manager from the Electoral Commission to help address whatever issues you have. If it is an issue you think you need to bring to the attention of media people, there will be several media people stationed at the polling station who will be willing to take on whatever concerns there are and relay it to the public. And hopefully that would catch the attention of the powers that be to help address some of these issues. We have also launched WhatsApp tip line. WhatsApp is the leading messaging platform in the country. So if you chance on any suspicious claim, if you have any particular issue you think you would want to bring to the fore for verification, you can reach us via a tip line, a WhatsApp chatbot that has been put together. And the number is 0244499971. Let me repeat it again.
Yeah, thank you.
499971. You simply have to go onto that WhatsApp chatbot. You can surface all the latest fact checks that we produce. You can as well be able to alert us to all sorts of claims that are flying around on your WhatsApp channel. If it's an image, you can alert us. If it's a video, if it's a text, you can always alert us, and we have a team which is behind the scenes who would surface these alerts and will duly verify and push out the verified information to the public. We need all our hands to be able to ensure we sanitize the information environment and not allow for the weaponization of misinformation and disinformation. I would through this medium also call on the internet companies. And here I would want to highlight Facebook, the lead social media platform in the country. TikTok increasingly also has a significant number of people signing on to the platform. So we would expect that they would have an operations center which would be working around the clock between now and the election day and even the day after the election, working to tackle the weaponization of misinformation and disinformation. Because from what we experienced during the last election, it's these crucial moments, the day before the election, the day of the election, and the day before after the election. Those would be the times that bad actors would like to exploit the information environment by spreading all sorts of claims to either confuse voters or to make voters apprehensive when it comes to they visiting their polling stations to cast their ballots. So I think the social media companies would have to be up and doing to ensure that their platforms are not weaponized to destabilize the country.
Right. And are there any key changes or differences or something that the voters should know this year on this 2024 election compared to the previous years, Rabiu?
I think the Electoral Commission has done a fantastic job setting up a chat bot on their platform, which allows for voters to go onto their platform and verify their voter ID cards and actually be able to identify the specific polling stations they have to go in to cast their ballots. So for any confused voter, simply you have to go onto the Electoral Commission's website, and there's a chat bot you can interact with to surface and confirm for yourself your voter ID card, and the specific polling center you need to go to cast your ballot. I think it's a one-stop shop where would encourage the public to go in there and verify things for themselves. You should not rely on information coming from social media if you've not verified the information from multiple sources from credible news organizations.
Okay, there you've heard it from Rabiu Alassane, who is from Ghana Fact. He's telling us how to solve issues. He even gave out a number. If you have issues, if you're seeing any irregularities at the polls there, you know what to do, you know who to talk to. I think we've really covered every aspect of this election, but we cannot end it without just an analysis from an expert who's also a colleague of mine here at Deutsche Welle. His name is Isaac Mugabe. Isaac has covered a lot of elections around Africa, and Isaac is not from Ghana, so we are going to get a fair analysis, I hope, because I mean, he's been also watching closely what is happening. Isaac, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Josey, for having me to be part of this wonderful discussion with my colleagues. You know, as my namesake Isaac Kelechi in Accra, and of course Maxwell Sook in Northern Ghana. Thank you so much, Josey.
All right. Now we need to just understand from you before we go to Ghana. You know what happened in Africa in terms of elections 2024 as we wrap up the year. Just a short brief from you, an overview. What would you say about the African elections in 2024?
Well, 2024 has been a very busy year for elections in Africa. And by the way, before even the year ends, we still have some elections, and I think in key countries. But as usual, most of these elections have been a surprise, you know, incumbents losing power, like you earlier mentioned in your kind of opener prelude to this conversation with Mimi Mefo. I mean, surprises in South Africa with the ruling African National Congress. In Botswana, you know, we saw the party that has been there for donkey years, for half a century, being kicked out of power, you know, and the opposition took it. And even in Namibia, that has been a bastion of democracy, I should say. Another lady was elected, albeit the opposition said, we shall not accept the results. We don't accept the results, but we can nevertheless move on, you know, to avoid any kind of clashes and all that. They want to continue freely, and we are still to wait whether they will contest the results from the election. So then coming Ghana, that has been known to be, you know, democracy, another bastion of democracy, and of course, yes, all eyes today and the coming days are on Ghana.
Right. Now, let me ask, first of you know, we are talking of Ghana, Isaac. What are the issues that voters have been concerned about as you've been following what's happening on ground in Ghana as well?
Well, like you already mentioned, just the question of the cost of living. This is definitely at the top of all voters' minds. But I think both parties have a track record which needs voters to have questions about their capability of managing this. Over the last 8 years, while the NPP under Nana Akufo-Addo have been in power, we've seen Ghanaian debt balloon cause a financial crisis, really a year or so ago, and has accelerated inflation, which made things even more difficult for people. But under John Mahama, who was the president till 8 years ago, things were not booming either in the way that people would have wanted them to. So Ghanaian elections have always been very close fought. Each side has a fairly steady 40-45% of the electorate, but a lot depends on how the marginal constituencies, some in Accra, some in the west, some in the north, where Maxwell Sook will vote. And by the way, just let me remind you, I interviewed outgoing Nana Akufo-Addo when he was still in the opposition. At the time, that was in 2012, when he was beaten flat straight by the late John Atta Mills, who died in office, and, you know, Mahama to finish the term. And Nana Akufo-Addo, I mean, that interview, if I wish I had brought it with me, he was so emotional, you know, on the way, on his path to losing, and it was like very emotional. And I just told him, you know what, hopefully 4 years ago, you will make it. You know, it's never the end of the road. And I was like, what's the next step? Are you going to beat the hell out of this who you think have stolen your vote? Was like, no, this is Ghana. We don't want to go that way. I'll have to wait for another time.
12 candidates, Isaac, and obviously, realistically, when you look at it, it looks like it's just two contenders, isn't it?
Definitely, the two parties, the NDC currently in opposition, NPP currently in power, have political machines that have sewn up a large part of the electorate. But there are one or two candidates, in particular the one that I took interest in was Namakome Badiako, who liked to do what Peter Obi in Nigeria, remember that time when I covered elections in Nigeria, wants to create a third force that comes in and takes a lot of the votes. He's standing as an independent. And I suspect there are quite a lot of people who are disgruntled with both parties, and we'll see whether that might make the difference. I don't think any of the independent candidates will win, but if they attract enough voters from either
you
the
never
NPP
know
or the NDC,
you never know.
Yes, I mean, we're talking about two major parties. It could
Isaac,
allow the other
2024 has been a surprise.
Exactly,
Donald Trump
but
is back. Donald Trump is back.
I know, but I don't think Ghana is yet to get out of that kind of quagmire of saying NPP or NDC. So independent candidates are not irrelevant. I would say that in this election, but I don't think, they stand a chance of ejecting or beating, NDC or NPP for that matter.
Right. But are people still confident in their democracy, or it's starting to change, Isaac?
In all honesty, Josey, and I can say this without fear of contradiction, people perhaps disillusioned with the absence of the economic dividends of democracy. That's a very good point. I mean, along with Senegal and Kenya and South Africa, Ghana has one of the most robust democracies in the continent. It's had a number of changes, governing party, presidential candidate. Every 8 years, more or less, there's been an alternation between the two main parties. So it seems to have quite robust democratic relations. And like you say, people are still proud of it. It has a very strong free press, we should say that. And it has very active civil society. So, and then there's been this peace agreement, pact signed between the governing parties, saying, they will accept the outcome. So I don't anticipate the kind of events we've seen further north in the Sahel or somewhere like Gabon. People in Ghana care a lot about this election. They'll be upset if they think anybody's been messing with the results, but expect to be a peaceful process and expect Ghana to remain stable. And again, Josey, it is striking that the chief of staff of the military has announced publicly that there will be no coup. The army will not be taking over, and that he feels if it is necessary to say that suggests that people are asking the question. So, and he said the army is on standby. It can take action where called only in capital letters, if asked by the Inspector General of Police. So you can see to an extent that at no conditions, the army is giving assurances to the Ghanaian people saying, hey, we know all of you, many of you, or analysts in every countries have been connecting, the Sahel, what's happening in the Sahel, or whether it can happen. He said, not at all. We are just on standby, and our help will come in only if requested by the Inspector General of Police. And that is very important, Josey.
Now, Isaac, just as we wrap up our analysis with you, the Electoral Commission, do you feel like Ghanaians still have trust in them? I mean, before elections in Ghana were a bit, there's been violence before. I mean, things changed all the way. But what can you say about the Electoral Commission in Ghana?
Well, I remember covering the elections in Ghana in 2008. I wasn't inside Ghana, but I was closely following it because I had to report about it from an outside perspective, just like you're bringing me in. It was an election that was tightly fought, heavily contested election, and the foot soldiers of both parties were quite active on the streets. And so it was the credibility of the National Electoral Commission, NEC, and the then chairman, I do remember very well, that basically persuaded people that this was a clean process. So this time around, the NEC doesn't seem to have quite the same degree of public credibility. But I think we can rest assured that there will be a lot of transparency and a lot of active monitoring by Ghanaians themselves. It's not necessarily something outsiders need to, like us. Ghanaians themselves will be monitoring these elections at every polling station, and the press, of course, will be holding all parties to account, including NEC itself. So that's why I place my optimism that this will work out all right. So, I mean, maybe to wind up my comment is, at the very least, I mean, we're looking at it from let's say from neighboring countries like the Nigerian point of view, where there's always disruption in elections and people always going to court, and there's always the sites that there's been, like a lot of malpractice, even Nigeria when elections go happen in Nigeria, the Ghanaians are closely watching. And when the Ghanaians go to elections, the Nigerians are closely watching.
That battle, nobody
they
can
take their
ever
battle from the jollof to the football
rice,
to the politics.
like we said earlier. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Isaac Mugabe, for taking time to join us on this discussion, and your analysis is well appreciated. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Great. So in case you missed how we started with the program, we actually started by giving you an insight on some of the candidates, 4 of the candidates out of the 12 in Ghana. But before I call in our correspondents again, just listen to Ellen.
2024 presidential election is shaping up to be one of the most competitive in the country's political history. The stakes are high as various polls put 4 major candidates ahead of 12 presidential hopefuls. Now here is what we know about these 4 candidates in no particular order. Let's start with Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia, the current vice president and the ruling New Patriotic Party's candidate. He is the digital transformation advocate with a focus on technology and economic reforms. The 61-year-old aims to push for a flat tax system and sees himself as a candidate with practical, tech-driven solutions to boost Ghana's economy, particularly in global trade, under his bold solutions agenda.
When you come to the macro economy, what is clear is that notwithstanding the challenges we've had, we have performed better than the government of John Dramani Mahama across.
Another interesting one is John Dramani Mahama, 66-year-old former president who is seeking a return to power after his single term between 2012 and 2016. His Resetting Ghana agenda, among other promises, seeks to overhaul the public health system and tackle chronic diseases through initiatives like the Mahama Cares program.
It is a defining moment for our nation. It is a choice between the Ghana we have today and the Ghana we want together. A Ghana of opportunity, prosperity, and justice for all.
Alan John Trematin is another candidate. The 69-year-old former Minister for Trade and Industry has left the NPP to form his own party, the Movement for Change. His platform centers around reducing the country's exchange rate volatility and implementing his great transformational plan. Alan Trematin's candidacy creates a shift from the established parties and positions him as an outsider. But does he have the goodwill to defeat the status quo?
And under Alan Trematin presidency, there's no child in Ghana who will finish school and not have a job.
Nana Kwame Bediako, known as the Gen Z president, is a 44-year-old youngest contender in the race. His focus is on economic freedom and regional industrialization, promising to transform all of Ghana's 16 regions into industrial hubs. He resonates with young voters seeking to energize them with bold, transformative ideas for the country's future.
This economic freedom that the new forces bring into Ghana is not only by us, but it's also from the people and to be achieved by the nation.
With Bawumia and Mahama currently leading the polls, the election promises to be a tight race. However, the decision rests with Ghana's over 18 million voters who will decide whether they lean towards the digital future promised by Bawumia, the return of Mahama, or the fresh perspectives of Alan Trematin and Bediako. Now, whatever voters' choice will be, this election remains a defining moment in Ghana's democratic journey. Let's see what Ghanaians decide today.
Absolutely. Let's see what Ghanaians decide today. Now, as we wrap up this discussion on Ghana's election, I just want to bring in my colleague again in Accra, Ghana, that is Isaac Kelechi. He's on standby, and also Maxwell Sook. He is in the northern part of Ghana. I'll start with you, Maxwell Sook. Just give us an update. What's happening on ground now? Anything different? Maxwell, can you hear me?
Yes.
So we just want to know, is there anything that's happening, anything different, or things are still the same? People are voting peacefully?
Yes, so far it's been peaceful. Only what I want to add is that, yesterday the Interior Ministry issued a statement closing down land borders to the north and the south. So, but cross checks ensures that, Ghana is full of porous borders. Security is able to mount everywhere. So, it is reported that people are using illegal routes and be able to enter Ghana. But the point is that they are not coming to Ghana purposely to vote, but some do their trade, some visit their families, some also cross to farms. So this is what actually the report we're picking. And then except that there's not really any tension so far. People are on their, the process is going peacefully. And I want to add that Rabiu mentioned about the fact check. So one thing is that they have mounted all these people, all them in major areas, including Tamale where I am. I visited them in the morning, and the team is really, they are really doing well. They have uncovered a lot of fake videos, and these videos comes in every now and then. I tell you, yesterday alone, they had more than 20 fake videos that were reported. So this is the issue. But today is not for campaign. What we see largely is that people are bashing supporters. No, people they think they can vote for them. So there is that culture where people go to the villages. There's apathy. People think, oh, I'm poor. I cannot go and I cannot use my money to transport myself and go and vote. So if you want, come and pick me and I'll go and do it. So that is ongoing.
Right.
And we can also see that they are distributing food around for people. Well, we might treat that as an electoral offense, but these are overlooked.
But Maxwell, I remember we once had a discussion on AfricaLink podcast in terms of insecurity in the Boku region. I just want to find out, has this affected the electoral turnout this year?
So in the morning, I made a call before, and you see the Electoral Commission actually has strategized to be able to get them vote. Okay. Now, this is what they do. There are two factions, so nobody should cross to the other side to vote. So they are able, all the people, officials and voted, they will come from their location. So there is not much a concern at this point. People are voting, and then except that the people who managed to flee the area and they haven't returned. There were also reports earlier that people had transferred their votes out of that area earlier, I think 3 months ago. So for that purpose, there's no really a problem since they restored campaign and then the process is going on. We're expecting that they were, at the beginning, there were rumors that there could be attacks on this day, but the country, the government has developed security and the military are on top of the game. And so far, everything is peaceful. I haven't heard. Maybe we'll check in the coming hours again to see.
Right. Now, before I turn to Isaac Kelechi in Accra, Maxwell, how are the candidates, maybe in their electoral campaign promises, thinking of saying how they're going to tackle this insecurity issue in the Boku region? Okay, I think we've lost Maxwell again there with internet. But Kelechi, welcome back. Tell us what's happening. I mean, you've also been following what the candidates were promising. So did they touch at all on this Boku region situation?
So the Boku issue is quite a very thorny issue. It has, even though it's tribal, it has turned political as well. I mean, all of them have just encouraged the people in there to let peace prevail. But because obviously we are talking about it being a more tribal issue, you need to be very cautious. It has existed and it has predate even the two political parties. So it's not like it's just something happening now. And so it has a very long history. So basically all they have said was to encourage people to be peaceful. But again, there's no concrete solution coming out from them because again, it's a tribal issue mixed with political tones. And so you won't get so much from them because the situation has been the same under both governments. Yeah.
And I'm just wondering, Kelechi, now talking about the top two main candidates, the vice president, obviously it's continuation as a leader. He's been a vice president. So I don't know if any of the policies of Nana Akufo-Addo would change when he becomes president. But what do you see that is going to, or what do you think that is going to do differently?
Well, so for Dr. Baumia, who is a candidate for the ruling party, who is now still the vice president, well, I mean, that has been the challenge. And for anyone who may be in his position, that will be the challenge. If people don't think that they have been impressed with the performance of the government, we say that you were part of the government. I mean, what else are you going to offer, really? But the same conversation also goes to the former president, who obviously has been there before and is coming back. The question will be, what else will you be doing differently? I think both of them are the best people to answer the question as to what new things they bring to the table. But again, it is only when the Ghanaians give them that opportunity that they will see what they can do. But basically, they have talked about their policies, like the reporting has been across, that the ruling party candidate has been more about technology being the solution to our economy, trying to fix the problems in the economy, and also the opposition party leader, former president, also talking about creating jobs and using his policy of 24-hour economy. So they've all put across their policies. The only thing with voters will be that, well, you were vice president, what else can you offer? Others will say, okay, you were former president, what else can you offer? But like I've said, it is still a decision. It's just the two people who are really the choices for people, and one of them definitely will have to be selected. And I think how far they go in convincing people that they have something new to offer is what will actually decide the vote this year.
But what stood out for you in former President Mahama's manifesto that you think he didn't do the last time that he would do this time around?
I mean, I think that he was president 8 years ago. I mean, in that particular dispensation, a lot of things were key in those areas. I mean, he faced a very difficult issue in terms of a power crisis, which for many analysts actually also resulted in him losing the election. I mean, the power crisis is over, relatively, you say, because he made some investment. The current government has also ensured that stability has been there, even though we have had challenges. So basically, the power crisis is not a conversation now. The conversation now has been about the economy because of the issues we've had post-COVID, even before COVID, post-COVID, and also the issue of going to the IMF. So it's about the economy, it's about jobs, and so the dynamics are different. So obviously, again, they will need to provide those kinds of solutions they think can deal with the current situation we have, and basically. You cannot tell what new thing he can do because the dynamics were different. But again, all that he's offering is about the economy, creating jobs, and his mantra has been 24-hour economy. I think that has been the selling point for them because he thinks that we need to open up the economy, have more people work, shift systems so that then more people can have enough jobs, and obviously the businesses can also widen their capacity. I mean, it's debatable as to how the plan will look like, whether we have the situation, the kind of system in place to let that happen. But when it comes to the ruling party, the challenge has been that you brought us into this situation. How are you able to take us out of that situation? And that obviously is a dilemma. But again, I mean, voting every 4 years is a routine. It's something that we have to do. So definitely, someone must lead us. And I think that within this period is whoever gets to convince people that indeed I will be my own master if I'm given a chance. That is for the vice president, because he obviously wasn't the president indeed. And maybe he will do things differently because he's his own man, if that is the case. The former president will say, I have the experience to being president before. I think that, and I've learned from my mistakes, I could do better job. And I think that they all have arguments that can be viable if they're able to sell it properly to the voters. But the voters are the ones who decide who takes that mantra.
Right. Yeah, now before we conclude and before you tell us how it is, what's happening there in Accra, there's one interesting candidate, the Gen Z leader. What can you tell us about him, Kelechi? What chances does he have?
Yeah, on our screen you can see that yes, he's a young, fancy guy. I mean, he's a very popular guy in Ghana who is a business guy, a very young person who has done a lot of investment business-wise, and so I think that many young people were hoping that we could have a youthful candidate because the leading candidates are not youthful like him. But I think, of course, the only problem he has is that maybe because of the way the country is divided into two major political parties, it's difficult to make some impact. But again, he has been able to create some kind of euphoria within the young people and trying to rally them around. I think it's good for the democracy of Ghana that many young people are trying to come into the fray and try to establish their political careers. And it's all good. I mean, we need to have diversity. We need to have people have choices. And also it helps, even puts other leading candidates on their toes to also try as much as they can to make room for the young people. Yeah. So that Nana Kwame Bediako is a very young, popular Ghanaian businessman. And I think that he adds some flavor to the election.
All right, right. Now, before we wrap up our live coverage of the Ghana elections 2024, Isaac Kelechi, what do you want our viewers to know about the whole process? What's happening? Any updates?
Yeah, so the process started in the morning, 7 a.m. local time, 7 GMT, and it will end at 5 p.m. local time. That is 17 hours GMT. Now, people have gone to vote. There will be a bit of reports of some delays in here and there. We've not had so much like we had in the past. There have also been reports of people also being arrested for holding some tampered ballot papers. But those are issues that the police are handling. But relatively, it has been peaceful and well coordinated. Now, after 5 p.m., you'll see people returning to their various polling stations within their communities just to observe the counting of the ballots, so that for them to confirm exactly whether indeed who they voted for won or not. And then we'll begin to have the collation process taking place through the night to the next day. And hopefully, I'm sure that by the end of tomorrow, which is Sunday going, you begin to see trends of the results coming in as to what is really happening. By Monday, obviously, you should have some kind of picture. And if, of course, one candidate was able to win landslide, which means actually you can see that the candidate is winning, it's not so close. I mean, by Monday, we should have results declared, or latest Tuesday. But basically, I don't think that we should have challenges having results in latest by Monday or as further as Tuesday, and then people will know who will win. But the key issue is that a leading candidate or the candidate who wins must have 50% of the vote plus one. And once the person gets that, the person has won. If not, and everyone is below 50%, then obviously means we have a runoff, which will obviously happen on December 28th. I'm sure many Ghanaians will want to enjoy their Christmas holidays, and so they want this. And so they want
absolutely.
This, yeah, they want this game. They want this done quickly. But the candidates themselves also want the election to be wrapped up today, so that they don't have anything else to worry about in the second round. Yeah. So basically, that's how it is. But I trust that the process will eventually end well. I mean, we've done this several times. This is the 9th time, so we shouldn't have an issue at all getting it done again. Yeah.
Right. Thank you so much, Isaac Kelechi, for joining us live from Accra, Ghana. But even if the live stream ends, our platforms are there for us to keep you updating. There'll be constant updates on what is happening on ground. But for this live coverage, this is a wrap. And I just want to say thank you so much to the executive director, executive producer, that is Assumpta Latus. I also want to thank my colleague Mimi Mefo, who was also joining us live here on this discussion. Not forgetting our analyst in the house as well, Isaac Mugabe. Thank you so much for joining us on this live broadcast. Our correspondents on ground, Isaac Kelechi, Maxwell Sook, and Ellen Senem. I'm still yet to get that one right, but Ellen Teko Rama. My name is Josey Mahachi. We've been live here on DWAfrica covering the Ghana elections 2024. Until next time, it's goodbye for now.